Words cannot describe how hypocritical and ridiculous it is that the West, the big banks, the military-industrial complex that runs our country, claimed a month ago that they didn't have any special forces in Libya and that they weren't involved in the destabilization program. Now it's been admitted for at least 3 weeks that British special forces and other mercenaries, not just regular government SAS, special air services, are in the country leading the groups, and that, yes, it is, quote, the CIA Al-Qaeda brigade out of Saudi Arabia and Egypt. And it's in the London Telegraph, CNN. They go, oh, is it wrong that Al-Qaeda's hailing this and that Al-Qaeda's doing it? Maybe not. Al-Qaeda was good when they attacked Serbia as a pretext to start that war. Oh, look, the Serbs are being mean to the Al-Qaeda. We've got to invade and hand it over to Albania, basically. Oh, they used Al-Qaeda to attack and start the war with the Russians. Is that saying the Russians were little angels? No. The point is the globalists are starting these wars. And now they've tried to assassinate Gaddafi in the last 24 hours with cruise missiles and bombs. That's confirmed by BBC and others. That's a violation of international law. No judge, no jury, no execution. The no-fly zone doesn't say they can try to kill Gaddafi. Notice Hillary and others have said you will accept a humanitarian force, that's a ground force, or we will completely destroy you. So this is a new war, and it's part of this larger strategy of tension. And we have the UN with its ruling, with its resolution Thursday, ordering this launch and calling it a no-fly zone. But in the body is the language for aerial bombardments that are now on and physical invasion with 2 Marine Corps giant amphibious invasion ships. They're basically Marine Corps ground invasion command carriers. They're like stub carriers. They're about 60% the size of a regular carrier the Navy has. You can pull them up if you want online. Their names are in the news. They're similar to the Coronado, but it's not there. That was the Coronado I watched do a drill of landing in the Bay Area of Oakland and San Francisco and disgorging U.S. Marines and foreign troops with role players screaming, I'm an American, please no, not the camp, don't take my gun. That was a big wake-up call for me in 1999. It's in my film Police State 2000, by the way. Now, Wayne Madsen is a Washington, D.C.-based investigative journalist, author, and syndicated columnist. He's written for The Village Voice, The Progressive, Counterpunch, Online Journal, Corp Watch, Multinational Monitor, News Insider, These Times, The American Conservative. His columns have appeared in the Miami Herald, Houston Chronicle, Philadelphia Inquirer, Columbus Dispatch, Sacramento Bee, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, among others. He's been all over international television, formerly with the NSA, before that in submarine warfare, anti-submarine warfare. Also worked for RCA Corporation. He reports from Capitol Hill and the National Press Club. WayneMadsenReport.com is the website. We're linked to it on Infowars.com. Wayne, looking at this, it's quite a precedent. We now have clearly special forces backed, hitting key targets, government buildings, telecommunications in Syria. The new precedent set that if sovereign governments repel Western-backed rebels, that there will then be a Western invasion. Is this the Zbigniew-Brzezinski destabilization program that he wrote about 3 years ago?
Well, I'll tell you, I think what we're seeing playing out in Libya, now also probably in Yemen, is the co-option of these Arab revolts by the CIA and their allied intelligence and special forces units in these NATO countries. No one would doubt that what happened in Tunisia probably surprised a lot of people. That's then spread to Egypt. And it was clear that it was bound to spill over the Egyptian and Tunisian border into Libya. It spread into Algeria, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and other countries. But now what we're seeing play out is NATO launching this attack on Libya. Now, this is a game changer. Many in the Libyan opposition did not want U.S. and NATO forces in the country, but I think that there's probably now two two forms of Libyan opposition. There are those who are Libyan nationalists who just want to see Gaddafi go, and then there's the others who have been waiting in the wings in London, in Washington, and other places, waiting for this moment. And these are the groups that are probably going to want to take over with the CIA and MI6's support. And what we're going to see is Libya's tremendous oil deposits being the target for these countries. Now, that said, I think we also have to look at there's a huge split within NATO and the European Union. And we probably haven't seen a split like this in NATO since the 1956 invasion by Britain and France of Suez. And, of course, President Eisenhower would not support that, and that created a major rift in NATO. Now we see Turkey and Germany, two large NATO countries after the United States as far as military power is concerned, not supporting this effort. And the worst thing, the Italians are now involved, and that is the former colonial power that ruled Libya. And I can't think of anything worse than having Italians participate in a military adventure against Libya.
Benito Mussolini actually invaded, for those that don't know. Now they'll say he's a good guy, but for those that don't know, this will clearly now unify more Libyans behind Muammar Gaddafi.
Right, and we have, of course, Mussolini's ideological son, Silvio Berlusconi, now in power in Italy, and of course he's facing all kinds of legal problems, messing around with underage hookers, and the guy's mafiosi from the word go. But he's looking at this, obviously, as a chance for him to gain political points. He was basically almost on his way out. And now we see Harper in Canada providing military forces for this invasion of Libya. And they're saying that his poll numbers are up in Canada. So I'm looking at people like Sarkozy and Berlusconi and Harper trying to make political points in this. And now we had Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, Gaddafi's son, state that Sarkozy's presidential campaign was bankrolled by Libyan money. Now that brings up the whole thing with the Clearstream bank accounts, Sarkozy being funded from money outside of France. And he went after Dominique de Villepin, tried to put him in jail for slander. And now it looks like probably what de Villepin and the others in the Chirac government were saying about Sarkozy was true. This guy was the first guy to run to Gaddafi and meet him in Libya, and now he's the first one to launch French warplanes against Libya. So we
also have the EU head, Herman van Rompuy, just a few months ago embracing Gaddafi. You have the British government embracing him, selling him most of his weapons. Is this an attempt to go ahead and kill Gaddafi so that he won't use all of his blackmail on them?
Well, I think so. He's obviously got, a lot of information about what's been going on behind the scenes. Just like Saddam Hussein had a lot of information about some of these leaders of these Western countries, and obviously the launch of the cruise, the Tomahawk, that hit his compound in Tripoli, where I actually was in October of 2009. There's a monument there to the Reagan attack against Gaddafi, where his daughter was killed in 1986. And that's a violation of Executive Order 12333, which prohibits the assassination of foreign leaders. Of course, we've violated that so many times over the years with the insane and there's been other covert operations against other world leaders that haven't gotten as much publicity over the years. But now we see a group in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, saying, look, Obama went to the UN, he went to NATO, but he never went to Congress to get authorization for this action. And there's one Democrat apparently who's willing to put forward articles of impeachment against President Obama.
Wayne Madsen, let me stop you right there, because that's the big issue I've been making since last Thursday. No statements, no even resolution, much less a declaration of war, which we haven't had since World War II. Now we're seeing nothing from Congress. Within 24 hours of the UN voting for a no-fly zone, it turns into a bombardment, with British news reporting that SAS smash squads are on the ground in Libya to mark targets for coalition jets. The rebels arrested a bunch of SAS, as you know, 2 weeks ago that embarrassed everybody. Clearly, they waited till the rebels were backed up in a corner so that they would have to accept Western intervention. What's the larger strategy in all of this? Why do you think this came together so fast? Does it play into the trillion-dollar nuke industry desperately needing a distraction from the radioactive clouds still drifting this way?
Oh, wow. It hasn't been interesting the last couple of weeks with the way the news cycle has gone. First, we had massive coverage of the Arab Revolt. Then we had the earthquake, tsunami, and the nuclear disaster in Japan. And now we're back to Libya. So, the news media, the corporate media, only goes for the news of the day. And then other major news events are not covered. And I think we're seeing a lot of that play out now. It's the news du jour, as I call it here in Washington. I think that plays a lot into this a lot, that the focus is moving away from other issues. As you said, the nuclear meltdown at Fukushima being a major story that's not only being suppressed by the Japanese government media, TEPCO, but also I think we see a lot of the nuke industry here, the nuke lobby, trying to play down the safety effects of that. So I think a lot of this news is intertwined, and the gatekeepers, the corporate news gatekeepers, are trying to have it their own way in how they report these breaking stories.
Wayne, I want to get more into the unfolding crisis, still having trouble getting those reactors under control, more gas explosions, more off-gassing unfolding today. Japanese still talking about a Chernobyl option of just burying the reactors. I want to get into Ann Coulter saying radiation's good for you. That's the actual headline. But before we go there, why do you think Obama went with this? To strengthen global governance, to strengthen the corporate state through the UN, to totally cut Congress out of the loop? What's the constellation, the cocktail of reasons that they engaged in this naked act, lying and saying he'd raced to Venezuela, he'd gone to Zimbabwe, saying he'd strafed crowds? Turns out that isn't true. I mean, the point is, I'm not saying Gaddafi's a good guy. It's just that they've been lying about him. And now we have giant Marine Corps and Navy amphibious invasion carriers off the coast. And the resolution, and Hillary's also said this, that if he doesn't accept a humanitarian ground force, that means an armed force, that there will be an invasion. So they've pretty much stated the ground invasion right there. We've got Gaddafi handing out over 1 million firearms, preparing for guerrilla warfare.
Right, and I think what this shows is Obama's no different than his predecessor when it comes to these coalitions of the willing. That we saw this play out in Iraq. We saw it play out in Afghanistan. And here we see it playing out again. Look, there were no vetoes in the UN Security Council, but it was to establish a no-fly zone. Now we even have the Arab League that supported no-fly zone saying, wait a minute, we weren't talking about launching cruise missiles and killing civilians, which we have many reports now that many civilians were killed by these NATO strikes on Libya. So they parade out a couple of countries, a few Air Force planes from Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Big deal. We don't see where's Egypt in this whole operation. So yeah, it's Obama is a neocon. His advisors are neocons. He can call himself a Democrat till the cows come home, but the foreign policy of Obama is no different than the foreign policy of George W. Bush.
What about this precedent? What about this precedent, Wayne? We got limited time here. I hopefully can stay a little bit in the next hour so we can take calls.
Sure.
But what about the precedent being set here where any time there's an uprising in a country, and if the nation crushes them in any way, then there's got to be a UN-ordered invasion, but then there's the hypocrisy of the West crushing and killing demonstrators, as has happened in England at G20 and other events. There's the specter of cops shooting people in the back. There's the specter of these similar things. On the heels of the hypocrisy energized, the illustration energized and highlighted by U.S. Army kill team in Afghanistan posed for photos of murdered civilians, including little bloody dead children with the, quote, kill teams, as Private Bruckheimer first revealed 8 years ago, that they're ordered to go into villages and kill babies and everyone.